How powerful is Marneus Calgar? The image you see in the background is taken from the latest edition of the Calgar comic. You probably already know that this comic is a partnership between Marvel and Games Workshop. Now, the image in the background has caused a bit of a discussion recently, as people are questioning if Calgar has the power to actually do something like this. So in this video, we're going to be covering Calgar's adventures through this comic book series, and also discuss other encounters he's had against the enemies of the Imperium in the broader sense of the lore, and talk about how powerful the chapter master of the Ultramarines actually is. So let's jump in and let's march for Macragge. Now, all this takes place on a planet called Nova Thilium. Now, this is where Calgar is actually from as a child. This is where his family grew up. This is where he grew up as a child. Now, there is a whole new backstory to Calgar. Calgar is not really Calgar. He is Alfarius. No, just kidding. He's not Alfarius, but if you click the little icon in the top right of the video, I did a full video dedicated to Calgar and his backstory as a child and how he actually became Marneus Calgar. To just briefly summarise it, and this is a brief summary, Calgar wasn't actually Calgar. Calgar was another servant, and his best friend was called Calgar. That best friend died, saving Calgar's life, so Calgar took his name to honour him. Yes, I've heard all the feedback, like this is what happened with Archimus and stuff, in John French's The Praetorian of Dawn, and yep, I get it, you know, this kind of thing has happened before when it comes to Space Marines. I'm sure it will keep on happening to other Space Marines and other chapters, because I think it's like a mark of honour now when Space Marines take each other's brothers' names to make sure that name lives on throughout the chapter and through time. Of course, there were some warp shenanigans involved, and two of the aspirants who were supposed to be working with Calgar and fake Calgar turned to corn, and they were sucked through some kind of warp portal, and they were never seen again. So real Calgar died, fake Calgar took Calgar's name for him to live on, and now Calgar, in his new format as a Primaris Marine, has returned to that planet. And the reason he's returned to that planet is because there is Khorne cultists overtaking the planet. So it's kind of linked back to what happened in his younger days to where he is now as a full-on Primaris Marine. So him and the Ultramarines, I don't know what kind of force of Ultramarines, I know there's a big force of Ultramarines there, but it's not the entire chapter, maybe like a small little retribution force, has deployed back to that planet to rid it from the Chaos cultists. Now, straight away in the comic book series, we do start to see Calgar taking on not only cultists, but Chaos Space Marines. He's going in, he's shooting them, he's punching them in the face, they're exploding. You know, they wanted blood for the Blood God, they are now getting blood for the Blood God. This is the kind of stuff you do expect. Calgar does have that type of effect around him where nothing can hurt Calgar. That is where my mind instantly goes to. Calgar is just like Abaddon. He's placed on the pedestal where no matter what or who goes against him, you know he's always going to be coming out alive, safe, and well. For example, there's a really cool scene where there's like this big steamroller of Khorne cultists, like it's massive. It's going through like all these like shantytown shacks, and it's just basically crushing them to death. And Calgar deploys with his Ultramarines. He actually jumps from a Thunderhawk in his Gravis armor, if I'm not mistaken, like kind of high up. I don't know like how he survives that. I mean, he must have like pressure stuff in his knee joints or something like that. But he lands on top of this ship, and he just starts absolutely smashing all the Chaos cultists. There's kind of like a little Deadpool cameo. Well, I think it's a Deadpool cameo anyway. It kind of looks like Deadpool, and he just basically takes his head off and smashes him, splurts him all over. He takes over this so-called cultist steamroller, and he brings it to justice. He just kills everyone inside of it, as you would expect from Calgar. Calgar going against cultists, even Space Marines going against cultists, you expect them just to get absolutely smashed within seconds. Now, issue 3 is kind of when we start seeing the power levels of Calgar unleashed. And I have to say, right, when it comes to comic books, they're always going to make the main character powerful. Like, if you look at Superman, Batman, all these things, everything around the main character in a comic book, they make them like these godly kind of creatures, because at the end of the day, it's their story. And this is kind of what they've done with Calgar. Like, one of the first scenes is Calgar riding an executioner tank through a wall, like, drive me closer, I would have punched them with my gauntlets, or something like that. And then he comes in contact with a Hellbrute. A Hellbrute dreadnought is in this in this building, and it's killing things. It's like killing all the Primaris Marines. Like there's this Reaver who gets absolutely like shanked and ripped apart. So Calgar's like, right, that's it. You know, me and you, let's go for it. He blocks all the shots with like his pauldron and like his gauntlet. Then he runs at it, and then he basically just punches it in his chest, and he rips its heart out. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't know if these things even have hearts. You know, all the chaos sorcery and stuff could a punch to the chest actually stop this? I thought like you have to like explode them and like just put them into a million pieces. Anyway, he rips his chest out, and the thing falls off a balcony, or he Sparta kicks it. It's not really sure what he does, but the thing just backs off, and it falls off the balcony, and it's shooting in the air, and we presume that it just falls to its death, and it dies down there. And Calgar's looking like a badass, like, yeah, that's what you get, Hellbrute. Don't mess with me. Over the next issue, we see Calgar board a flyer, and during that flyer, it gets shot down, and him and this tech priest, who is also one of the main characters in this, it's kind of like a buddy cop drama, where this tech priest and Calgar like playing off each other, and they're talking all the stuff, and they're surrounded by chaos. It was all a trap, and we get the full reveal that those two boys that got sucked into the warp thing are actually back, and they're kind of like one mutant zombie monster thing now. I don't know what to bloody call it. And they've sworn their allegiance to Khorne. They've got all the power from Khorne, and they want to bring death on Calgar. And Calgar's like, okay, let's dance. Now this Chosen of Khorne reveals that he has a Lord of Skulls. He's also got a bunch of Space Marines as well, which is also massively powerful. Those Space Marines are veterans of the Long War. You know, they know how to kill loyalist Space Marines. So Calgar, in his wisdom, he shoots one of like the engine compartment, or where the fuel is, of his downed aircraft. That explodes, and it gives them like the cover to actually fall back. This is like this cool little saying he says. It's like, do we run, like the tech priest says? And Calgar's like, no, we don't run, we withdraw. You know, kind of, you know, we kind of never retreat, but we withdraw. Kind of the same thing, Calgar, come on now. Anyway, they go into like this little cave, and Calgar discovers a bunch of cultists in there doing cultist things. He destroys them all, of course, as we went back to. Chaos cultists stand no chance against Calgar. But in there, as they're trying to send messages for help, of course, they're ambushed by the Chaos Space Marines, and they're ambushed by this champion of Khorne. Of course, Calgar is like killing the cultists, and he's killing the Chaos Space Marines, but his main threat is this champion of Khorne. They get into a little melee battle, and the champion manages to stab Calgar through the heart with their Chaos Sword. Calgar's like, oh, you stabbed me through the heart. What is it with Calgar, by the way? Getting stabbed through his heart. He got stabbed through his heart with Abaddon as well, which we'll get onto in the latter part of the video. But like the Chaos champion is like, you are weak. You don't know what we've been through to get this power. And like Calgar's like, do you know what I have seen to be where I am today? And this is the interesting bit of the video now. We get a flashback of all the OP instances that Calgar has stood the test of time. So if you look in the background now, what we have is a collage between like when Calgar was young all the way to where he is now. So he's starting killing Tau. So, you know, nothing really special when it comes to killing Tau. He's just taking him apart in melee, of course, as you expect. The next one is Calgar during the Death Watch. I actually never knew Calgar served in the Death Watch. He has no Death Watch markings anywhere on his armor to say that he actually served in the Death Watch. So that is pretty cool. You can actually see he's actually killing some of the Necrons there, and he's like just stabbed one in his head, and he's got a flame in the other hand. It's like, yeah, you know, he's kind of like John Wick. He doesn't care. He's just going in and he's killing Necrons, which again is powerful within itself, because these Necrons are no bloody pushovers. They've been alive for millions and millions of years, and Calgar is probably only a couple 100 years old, and he's going in, shanking one with his combat knife in his head and flaming the rest of them. The next one is the First Tyrannic War. Now this is very, very interesting, because we all know what happens when Calgar fights Tyrants. There's two instances. It's the First Tyrannic War, which the Ultramarines as a whole, you can probably argue, are massively OP for surviving this, because they went against like a full, well, I say a full high split, a splinter feat, but it took the entirety of like the Blood Angels to come together to defend Baal, and it was just like the Ultramarines on this planet, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, they probably had tons of PDF, millions of soldiers, you know, tech priests, admech and stuff like that, but they overcame this massive threat. So there is one instance of how powerful Calgar can be when he's leading his chapter. Then it goes to the Siege of Zalafras, and if I'm not mistaken, this is where Calgar basically held like a staircase on his own, or like an entrance to something on his own for like 3 or 4 days, or was it like a month or something? He just held it against like an entire wire of orcs, and they couldn't get past him, and reinforcements managed to arrive, and the place was saved, which again is kind of powerful in itself, because we know what orcs do, we know what they can bring to the battlefield, not only in tech but in strength and in numbers, and for Calgar to hold them all off, yes, you can argue that is very, very powerful. And moving on to the next one, it is of course against the Eldar. When I say Eldar, this is an avatar of Khaine. Now this is where it starts to get a bit juicy, ladies and gentlemen, because we all know that Calgar defeated an avatar of Khaine. He's defeated some big HQs in his life. But then again, you can probably argue that to make someone powerful in the 40k IP, you have them fight an avatar of Khaine and break it. Look at Lorgar, for example. Lorgar broke an avatar of Khaine. Oh, was it like the main avatar? I'm not too sure. I can't remember. But he defeated one as well. So Calgar is like Primarch level now. When you start to think of this, is a Primarch can beat an avatar of Khaine, and then Calgar can beat an avatar of Khaine. Is Calgar power levels up there with a Primarch? Next up, we have him going against the Swarmlord, and he actually beat the Swarmlord in hand-to-hand combat, by the way. That is the law, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me, but I think he was like, well, I think he had his legs ripped off, and some of his bodies, like he was near death. Like the Swarmlord did nearly kill him, but he managed to kill it with his bare hands and defeated it. And the only person I really know who's defeated the Swarmlord is Dante. As like any Primarchs, no, because Primarchs can't, because Primarchs weren't around back then. But Dante defeated the Swarmlord, and it basically killed Dante. You could probably argue that he did kill Dante because he saw Sanguinius. He was dying, or he was dead in that state, but he was brought back to life by the so-called, I'm doing air quotes here, power of Sanguinius, because his duty was not yet done. Flash forward, we see Calgar bowing down to Guilliman. Guilliman's return now. Now, there was a pretty cool story with Calgar feeling a bit unwanted, and he didn't really know his place, because Guilliman's come back, and he was like, well, Guilliman's the leader of the Ultramarines, and Guilliman's like, no, I'm not the leader of you guys anymore. Yes, you are my sons, but I'm leader of the Imperium. Calgar, you still be you. You are still the chapter master of the Ultramarines. You have the authority of the Ultramarines. I am the authority of the broader Imperium. And the next scene is Calgar crossing the Rubicon Primaris. Calgar was the first Primaris, Calgar was the firstborn Marine to cross the Primaris Rubicon. So the firstborn to become a Primaris Marine, which was a risky procedure. I think you had like 60% chance of dying or something like that. They are changing that law now in the latest Blood Angels, but they did say that one day there will be no risk at all, because as it improves and everything like that, as technology, it'll just be like walking to your shop to get like a loaf of bread or something. But he took it when it was risky, and he survived that. Again, another sense of Calgar being untouchable and not dying at the hands that probably would have killed other Marines. Anyway, back to the main story. Calgar rips one of the heads off of the Chaos Champion. He then throws the Chaos Champion into a pit, and then he just shoots him to death, and he explodes. Calgar comes out of the cave where the Ultramarine reinforcements are descending from the sky. We are saved. And he's like, well, let's go and join in, and let's go and purge. And then this is where this image is from. Again, that we're seeing in the background now, of Calgar jumping on and ripping the head off a Lord of Skulls and shooting down his throat. Now, in the comic, it doesn't explain how he actually gets up there. He just like points his finger up and is like, what, going up to purge? And then he's on top of it, unless he climbed up there and, just like Spider-Man his way up and rips its head off, and he shot down it. And this is where like all the discussion is now. It's like, how powerful is Calgar? Can he do this? This is bollocks. Calgar shouldn't be able to do this. But if you look back on what Calgar has achieved, a Swarmlord, an Avatar of Khaine, this is nothing. This is like a walk in the park. Yeah, a Lord of Skulls is powerful, but it's not as powerful as a Carnifex. It's not as powerful as an Avatar of Khaine. It's not as powerful as holding like an entire Orc War back from like a doorway over a number of weeks, days, or whatever it bloody was. This is nothing. This is just Calgar doing Calgar now. Now, in my personal opinion, when it comes to how powerful Calgar is, you have to remember one thing, is that Calgar is probably at the top of the pyramid when it comes to plot armor for the loyalist side of the Imperium. If you look at the heretical side of the Imperium, the top of the person in the plot armor for me is probably Abaddon. Now, these two pyramids have crossed before. Abaddon fought Calgar on Vigilus. For those of you who read that stuff, Abaddon came out on top, even though he had the chance to kill Calgar. He didn't. He went back to the Vengeful Spirit because it was getting firebombed. Yes, we talked about that plot point before and how awful it was, because you thought, you could kill the master of the Ultramarines, and Abaddon didn't do that. Again, that's a whole nother story for another time. But when it comes to Calgar and his power levels, for me, I think it's just plot armor. That's all it is. Calgar is the face of the Space Marine faction. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way or a slight to him. The Ultramarines are the face of the Space Marines. Everything that GW do, it's always painted as Ultramarines. Some of the main stories are Ultramarines. The model lines always painted as Ultramarines. And Calgar is the main Ultramarine. He is the Ultramarine. So when it comes to him, he's got to be doing the most heroic, the most heretic stuff, the most heroic stuff that a Space Marine can do, because it's Marneus Calgar. That is what we've grown up to know the Ultramarines as Calgar as. Yes, you can massively disagree with that, saying, well, it is bullcrap, Valrak. No, he shouldn't be able to do that. They should bring him down a touch. But then what my retort to that is that, yes, some cases like the Avatar of Cain, the Swarm Lord, can be a bit ridiculous. But this is a comic book, and they're trying to make the rule of cool factor more than anything. Like all the blood and the gore, I've been enjoying it. The story has been a bit hit and miss in certain places, but overall, it has been a pretty decent comic book from me. Anyway, that is me done for another video. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. I would love to get your thoughts and feedback on this. How powerful do you think Calgar is? Does he have the plot armor? Is he the most plottier of plot armor? Does he have more plot armor than Abaddon? Post it down below, and we've got a nice little talk down there, as we always do. See you now. Have a great day, and bye-bye.